You're listening to Back Pew Convos.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Sal. And this is the podcast God wants you to listen to.
So if you want to remain in God's will, have a sit down.
Grab a beverage of your choice.
And have a listen.
You're welcome.
Hey, I'm walking here.
Yay. What's up with you?
Nerving.
Like a couple of real professionals, we didn't pop our tabs before we hit record.
I should have done it directly into the microphone.
Should have.
I wish I could go back and do that now.
I'm having a beer. Heavy on the root. Root beer.
Heavy on the root, eh?
Yeah.
Well, you can't see it because I got my Margaritaville Frost Buddy here. But if Frost Buddy wants to sponsor us, we'll take it.
Yeah.
We'll take free Frost Buddies or whatever you want to give us.
Yeah. We will relate everything that we talk about back to Frost Buddies, actually.
In one way or another.
The gospel will always come back to Frost Buddy. Because when your soul is destined to eternal damnation and hellfire, you're going to wish you had a Frost Buddy to keep you cool.
Hallelujah. That'll preach.
Nope, nothing that comes out of my mouth will preach.
In some circles, that would preach.
I am not a preacher.
But my beverage of choice, what I was going to say, hidden behind the Frost Buddy, is zero sugar Mountain Dew Baja, but the citrus, tropical citrus or something like that flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
Well,
I started to bring you one, and then I forgot about it.
And then you didn't. Thanks.
Next time, Gadget. Next time. Hey, let's see if our sound... We switched to Zencaster because Riverside was giving us the ick.
It was being a real biff.
Yeah. Hey, you get your dang hands off her. So let's see. I don't even remember what all the words are. Not words, but the buttons. We're going to see if our sound pads work now. Hey, there's that one. There's applause. Yeah. All right, let's try this. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Here we are. Once again.
Here we are.
In the basement.
Yes.
In the basement of the Sutherland compound.
The bossment. You know what? I feel like these lights may be too dim now.
Well,
I think it actually looks fine in the recording, but...
Turn your lights down low.
Little Bab.
Yeah, that was the song that we played in the delivery room when Finn was being born. So that's how he came into the world, to Turn Your Lights Down Low. Bob Marley. The version that has Lauryn Hill in it as well.
Yeah. Somehow I knew exactly which version of it you were talking about.
Yeah. So that's how my son entered the earth. In this incarnation. If reincarnation's a thing, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, or will we?
Or we won't. Who knows?
Do you, if it's true, then would we know?
Probably not. I don't know. Some people, I was going to say, some people pretend like they remember their past lives, and then that was kind of loaded of me. Maybe they really do remember. I don't know. I'm not a reincarnationist, but it's just as plausible as any other explanation needs to. I don't know.
I have a theory that if the whole reincarnation thing was true, I must have been Pacific Islander in a previous life. Had to have been.
Checks out.
Had to have been.
The only thing, and this is, I know we were just being silly, but I'll take it a little bit serious here for a minute. The only thing, as a father,
As a boy dad,
the only thing that I have sort of thought about reincarnation in serious manner
Yeah.
is that it does seem like one of the tragedies of life is we don't know what in the hell we're doing until we're already doing it. And then you're like, well, dang, if I could go back and do all this stuff over again,
Right.
but you can't. And it
Right.
is sort of just like a, like if this is the one shot we got, that does seem like a tragedy in a sense. Like there's other ways to, I'm not making any sort of grand statement about it because there are other ways to work it out, however you want to work it out. But I'm just saying, as a father, that's one of the things that I look back on at times, and I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing. Like as a husband, I didn't know what I was doing as a son in school. Like I didn't know what I was doing, and now I've lived it and I have that experience. And I feel like if I could do it again with what I have now and the knowledge I have now, then I could do a better job. And like
Yeah.
it does seem like that is a sort of. I mean, it's just hard to say because that seems like a tragedy. But then again, if you change even one little thing, the universe is entirely different, in my opinion. So
Yeah.
who knows what would happen if you even change 1 second, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I have had that thought before about
Yeah. Well, so, and even if that was the purpose of reincarnation was to like eventually nail it, like I don't think any of us ever nail it. I don't think there's ever been a single human being other than Jesus that's ever nailed it. So
yeah, I don't know.
hey, by the way, really quickly, can you move your chair forward just a little bit? Because every time you move, the backdrop there shakes,
Fine.
shakes, and I
Fine, Biff.
think you just brought it with you.
It's fine.
Okay.
I'll just quit moving.
Okay.
But yeah,
It's
anyway.
fine.
It sort of goes along the lines of Andy Bernard. Just wish that we knew that we were in the good times.
When you're in
We
the
knew
good
we were in the good
times.
times.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of, even when you do know it, though, it's sort of like hindsight, I guess. Hindsight's 2020. Like,
Right. Yeah.
we're all just doing our best. We don't know what we're doing. Nobody knows what they're doing. That's the biggest thing you learn as you age. It's like, you remember when we were probably like 10 and your parents were however old they were when you were 10, you know? Uh, Mine, I guess, would have been 28 because they're 18 years older than me. So yeah, they would have been 28 years old. And I remember thinking they were adults and knew what they were doing. And now I remember when I was 28 years old, which was 11 years ago, and I didn't know anything.
Yeah.
I still don't know anything.
I thought about that earlier this week too. That like the older you get, the more you realize that like, yeah, none of us have got any of this figured out, huh? None of us really know what we're doing, huh?
We're all just kind of stumbling around hoping that things work out.
Yeah, I mean that reminds me of Acts 17, what Paul says to the on the in the sermon there on Mars Hill or whatever, the about groping around in the dark, basically, like searching for God, even though He's not far from any one of us. In Him we live and move and have our being. All of that. That was the imagery that came to mind whenever you said that. We're just kind of like crawling in the dark.
Crawling in my skin.
Who's the band that did Crawling in the Dark? Because you just did the Linkin Park song.
I did Linkin Park. I don't know
um,
Crawling in the Dark.
You know that song.
I mean, I probably
It's
would.
Hoobastank. Hoobastank.
Oh, Hoobastank, I can only think
Hoobastank.
the reason.
Yeah, I think they only had those two. It was The Reason was off, I think, off of their second album,
Yeah, it
like
was
a
the
hit.
second one.
But then they had Crawling in the Dark, I think, was on their first album, and it was a pretty big hit. I bet you've heard it.
I'm sure I have because I remember Hoobastank having like a big hit, and then like you said, the reason was on like their next album. So I know that there was one song off of that first album, their first big album that was popular that I know. But that was when we were in like 7th grade. So
Yeah. I would play it, but copyright and stuff.
copyright, freaking capitalism.
YouTube and Spotify will be like, Hey, Buster,
Get out of here.
knock it off. And then we'd have to remove it from.
And then the millions and millions of Bacpurians around the world would be so disappointed.
We have 29 subscribers, so.
That's 29 people that matter to me.
And we don't even get an average of 29 listens per episode.
Actually, I would say probably 27 because I'm assuming me and you are 2 of 29.
Yes, I am subscribed.
So
Yes.
as am I. So,
Hmm.
but I do watch all of our episodes.
I usually do too, I think.
Well, not all of them, like in the entirety, but I do like to make sure that they turn out okay. You know that they, especially when we. Right now, we're not ahead of schedule because
Right.
we're on a vacation, but usually we're at least a week, if not 2 or more, ahead of time. And so by the time they come out, I don't even remember what we talked about.
Right.
So I like to listen to them just because if the rare occasions that someone does be like, hey, you said this in the podcast, I'll be like, I don't even remember what I said.
I usually have to go back and listen whenever before I upload the episode from the same week, just to know how to title the episode. I usually have to go back and listen because I don't know what we talked about either.
Because you have so much knowledge rolling around in your head that you just can't even remember.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's what I think. That's what I'm telling myself.
Mhm. I do always have things going on in my mind, listening to things and thinking about stuff. And at work, I mean, my actual job is pretty mindless, so I have a lot of time to think and listen to audiobooks and podcasts and think about those things and get lost in my own thoughts and have to go back and rewind and all that kind of stuff.
That was the hard part for me this morning, listening to David Bentley Hart and Alex O'Connor. Like I always listen because I don't have a mindless job. Like I have to kind of think. Some of it's mindless. It just depends. But so a lot of times I'll turn in a podcast and sort of it's playing and I am listening to it, but I'm also like multitasking.
Yeah.
And that's fine usually. Like it's not something where I'm going to remember everything I heard, but like I can usually follow the conversation just fine. And on this one, I was just like, I have no idea what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good one. You know, I wish that he would go back on there and do more theology than he did. But I mean, it was a fine conversation. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, this one was more philosophy than theology, I would say.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, there was a few theological. Did you finish it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there was a few things in it that he touched on theology a smidge, but
Yeah, I did find it interesting that he kept mentioning Daniel Dennett.
Yeah.
Because Daniel Dennett is someone who's I don't necessarily agree with theology wise, of course, because he was, an outspoken atheist, but I have found a lot of his work compelling, particularly like I have borrowed a lot off of him in my understanding, my conception of free will and compatibilism. Like a lot of the language for that came from Dennett. So that was a familiar name. It was interesting to hear him. Dennett's passed now, so his name doesn't come up as much.
Yeah.
Now, but
Right. I was able to follow the conversation pretty well, I think. It every time that I listen to people talk about philosophy, though, it's just an ugly reminder to me that I am that I have not read anywhere near deeply enough. I mean, there are so many things. You can only do so many things,
Yeah.
Like I want to, like,
that's my big problem.
like I know just enough about philosophy to recognize all the names that they mentioned.
Yeah.
But don't know enough about their philosophy to actually. I was still able to figure out based on what they were saying what they were. I think what the point was that he was making whenever in his responses to Alex's questions and stuff. But it always anytime I hear a lot of philosophy talk, it always drives me nuts that I just don't have time. There's so many like theological books that I want to read that I haven't really delved into too much philosophy. But
yeah, I'm actually had a similar thought this week, not necessarily about philosophy, but just time, just because like there's so much I want to read. And there's so many different topics that I'm always interested in. And at the same time, like I'm doing these courses through Global Grace Seminary, and so I've got assigned work that books that I need to read for the class that are like required reading, and then they're just knowing what the class is about. I also have like 3 or 4 additional books that I on my bookshelf already that I'm like, oh, this will be a good one to read in conjunction with this class. And this is all about New Testament studies, so like right now I've got like a list of like 6 books plus all the lectures I need to read and listen to for New Testament studies. And I am interested in New Testament studies, and like I know how the Old Testament studies course affected me in my relationship with the scriptures in the Old Testament. And so I'm excited to get into that stuff regarding the New Testament. But there's so many other things I want to look into too and read, but
Yeah.
I can't read all these books. I don't
Right.
have enough time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make a point to read every single day,
Mm-hmm.
but some days I just don't have enough time to read as much as I want to.
Right. Yeah. I haven't made anywhere near as much progress on that David Bentley Hart book. His newest one, The Light of Tabor. I haven't had a chance to make a lot of progress in that. So far, it seems like you would love it.
Probably.
I know you don't. You literally just said you have no time, but if you had the time, I think you need to read it.
Yeah.
I'll for sure. I'll let you have it whenever I'm done with it, and you can read it whenever.
Yeah, I would love to read it. David Bentley Hart is someone who I've listened to quite a bit on videos and podcasts and stuff, but I've never read any of his books, any of
Yeah.
his stuff. But every time I listen to him, I am interested to understand his theological framework better.
Yeah.
Because he's one of those where he even just the way he speaks is kind of hard to follow if you're not used to speaking and listening to people who speak the way he does.
Yeah.
You know, um, so sometimes I hear what he says and I think I may know what he means by that, but I would like to hear him delve into like what do you actually mean when you say that? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
he's someone that I would like to look into his conceptions of things a little more. Especially because what I have listened to, he does seem like he's pretty influent. Like he knows the like Advaita Vedanta pretty well,
Mhm.
and he's pretty versed in it, and that's something that I'm very interested in, and I draw a lot of inspiration from.
Yeah.
So with him being, and I don't, is he Orthodox? I would take him to be Orthodox. I don't know if he is or not, but
Yeah. I think that's what he is Orthodox.
so he is like an Orthodox Christian, but seems to have a lot of influences from Vedanta. And I'm assuming if he knows Vedanta, he probably knows and is pretty well versed in Buddhism as well. And that's sort of those are my influences, So
Right. Yeah. I think. I mean, he's already mentioned um, Vedanta a little bit, and he's already mentioned some of that kind of stuff in this book already, and I'm in the first chapter.
right.
So
Well, see, those are the things. Those are the areas that I've noticed quite a bit of overlap with my own Christian conception, and there's quite a bit of overlap with Vedanta, and then also Buddhism. But Buddhism is less in the theology and more in the practice and application of the principles, and so all of that realm is interesting to me. That's
right, yeah. Um, but yeah, he is. He not only is he. I think he's. For whether you care about that kind of thing or not, I think he is orthodox as far as like
yeah.
affirming the creeds and things like that. Probably, but he's when I say orthodox, I also mean like capital O
Yeah.
orthodox too.
That's what I meant. Like,
Yeah,
is he like a member of the Orthodox Church or whatever the faith? Just and only the reason why I only think it's worth mentioning is just because it kind of gives you an idea of the things that he affirms. Like if you're a member, like theosis is something that's very orthodox in their beliefs, and like there are I'm sure other sects. Sects. That's just my country accent that makes it hard to say.
sex.
Sext of Christianity that teach theosis. Um, but I know it's an Orthodox thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm very interested to hear to finish this book and see where all he goes with it. And this is only my second book from him. I've listened to That All Should Be Saved.
Mhm.
maybe 5 times. But I haven't read actually read a physical copy of anything of his until now. I'm excited to get into it.
One of the things that is probably elementary, but maybe not as elementary as we want to believe, is that I'm finding interesting and fun is being able to draw inspiration from these different theologians, but also I'm not a disciple of any of these theologians. You know what I mean? Like I'm drawing inspiration in language and frameworks from over here and over here and over here, but also charting my own path with that, and I'm finding that to be really interesting. And I say it's elementary because you're like, well, is that what we all do? And like, I don't know that is what we do. I think in a large part, it's just like, this is what they teach at my church. So this is what I think. You know what I mean? Instead of like, and part of that's just time. Like we don't, I have immersed myself, and like I said, I'm taking these classes at Global Grace, so I'm reading all these books. So like I've immersed myself in the culture enough to learn these different voices and draw from them. Most people like they get their church when Sundays, Wednesdays, or whatever, and they don't have enough time to dedicate to reading and watching lectures and taking courses and finding that
Yeah.
path. But because I know, like Baxter Kruger's huge. He's been huge influence on me.
Yeah.
Giving me a huge, and there's things that I probably would disagree with him about. Actually, I know, like I've had specific conversations with my chat bot about like areas of like
Yeah.
where I overlap with him and where I diverge from him, but like he's been a huge influence on me
Right.
at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. I do think that your average Christian may actually be. I think actually that, and this isn't necessarily. Like I think that what you were saying was like more formal education, right?
Yeah, that's a huge factor in it. Yeah, for sure.
Because like I do think that tons of people, and I actually think that this is maybe could be part of our problem, is that we spend so much time being discipled outside of our church context that we your pastor, your Sunday school teachers are trying to they're fighting a losing battle because all these other things have your attention, your faithfulness, your disciples of
Right.
these other things throughout the whole rest of the week. And whether that be, and some of that might be like listening to other
Yep.
pastors or listening to other podcasts that are theology based, but they're different. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, what I was thinking about when you were saying that is perhaps it's not so much people aren't listening to things, but more it's not a diversity of voices that they're hearing. And what I mean by that is that it's sort of bleeds into the conversation that we had last week about algorithms. Like we tend to listen to the people that we want to agree with, or that tend to just be our own echo chamber, the things that our algorithm feeds us because it knows that we want to listen to, right? And that's not always necessary. Like if you're not hearing the multiplicity of different voices, you're not going to get what I was talking about, where you're drawing where you're drawing inspiration from Vedanta and Buddhism and Orthodox Christianity, and I'm drawing huge influences from Paul Tillich, but also I'm largely influenced by Baxter Kruger, and these are two guys who see things quite differently. And then there's David Bentley Hart, and then you've got the more social aspect of it, like Shane Claiborne has been huge influence for me too. Like there's just these different voices. None of them fit the same stream really. It's a multiplicity of diversity in those voices. But if you're just like the same Calvinism over and over and over again.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a interesting thing because I do think that like even thinking about diversity, like depending on who you are and what you're listening to, you may think that what you're listening to is actually quite diverse, when in reality it's maybe not as diverse as you think it might be. You know,
Yeah, maybe.
like you may listen to one person that's an Arminian, one person that's a Calvinist. You may listen to another person that maybe is slightly more progressive or someone that's slightly more conservative and think, oh, I'm pretty well rounded here. but maybe what you're actually getting isn't that diverse
Right.
when it's all said and done, you know?
Yeah. It's actually funny that we went this direction because the diversity within faith traditions is something that's kind of been fresh on my mind.
Yeah.
Mostly because I'm currently reading How the Bible Actually Works by Pete Enns, and that's one of the it's basically the main theme of the book is like he posits three characteristics, I guess is the word, of scripture, and one of the three is diversity, which basically he's pointing out that the only way the Bible works is to accept the diverse voices within it, accepting the multivocality of scriptures and working within that multivocal framework, which itself means diversity. There's diverse schools of thought, I mean, the way I framed it in my Old Testament essay was that I don't think Jesus as the lens that we should, as Christians, interpret scripture from, he's not introducing a foreign God to the Jewish audience. He's aligning himself with a voice that has existed since Genesis, since the first all the way through, well, of course, Revelation was written at the time, he, but it continued through Revelation. But I think Jesus is siding with a voice that's always been present in the Old Testament scriptures. You know what I mean? He's not introducing a foreign God. And so, but
Right.
that only makes sense if you understand that there's a multiplicity of voices there, that there's diverse streams of thought contained within the pages, which when you see it, it's kind of obvious, but it's also, depending on the background that you come from, that's akin to heresy. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I haven't thought on that, but
it's just really funny how, I mean, I guess just going back to what I said about it being a formal heresy, depending on what stream of thought you come from, it is sort of interesting that there is such a negative at times reaction to that because it's in the pages. Like, I mean, we talked about it some with the Jonah versus Ezra Nehemiah thing, but there, like, it's not. You could do the same with Jonah and Nahum
mm-hmm.
regarding Nineveh. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's right there.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. I think you do have those competing voices. And I think the question is, what do you do with that?
Right.
I mean, well, I think you have to acknowledge that there are those competing voices first. But even see, that's the thing, that all this stuff is really more complex than we would like to admit, because even in saying competing voices, it depends on what we mean by that, you know? Because, like, even though these two things disagree with each other, are they actually in competition with each other,
Right.
or are they actually complementary in a way that is intentional?
Yeah, you're
You know?
creating a clear delineation so that you can see the delineation
Right.
and
Yeah.
learn from it. It's not necessarily a competition if the whole purpose is to create a delineation in the first place. You
Right.
know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
But you don't just ignoring that and trying to force them together
Right.
doesn't
Yeah.
do any good. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. And I think that's one of our issues in the church today is our view of scripture
Mm,
is
that'll preach.
it's it's you know what it is. It's progressive. No one wants to hear that, but that's what it is. Our view of the traditional view, the quote unquote traditional view today, what someone today would espouse as the traditional view of scripture, is in fact a progressive thing. Like, I don't think that.
It's found within the pages of the text itself.
Yeah. Like, I mean, what the author of Second Timothy did and didn't mean by inspired or God breathed is something that has been disagreed about and talked about and discussed since the beginning. you know,
Right.
like it's not an automatic the idea that it means that every single word of this is meant to be read literally as true and cannot have any contradiction whatsoever is a pretty recent
Oh yeah, absolutely.
thing is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And so it's in that sense it's a little progressive, which is a bad word to some folks, but
It can be a bad word, but that's something that Enns talks about in that book, is that the entirety of scripture is a rethinking project. Like it's not something that we're imposing on the text from the outside, but it is contained within the, because mm, Genesis to Revelation covers thousands of years. Like, people change, I don't want to say change their mind, but views of God did evolve, and it's found within the pages of the Bible itself. I mean, that's not even controversial. It will sound controversial to people who maybe haven't heard that before, but like, if you're actually paying attention to what's in the Bible, that's not even controversial. It's just there. Um, so the whole kind of biblical scriptural process from the beginning has been progressive. And Enns would argue that's why it has had lasting power, because it remains relevant throughout thousands of years, because we're constantly taking it and seeing it through our own time and our own place and our own culture and our own eyes. You know what I mean? Like, that's what keeps it relevant. Like, if it was static, this is not my opinion. This is what N says in the book. If it was static, it would have died out. It wouldn't have lasted long at all. Like, what has gave it lasting power was its ability to be adapted constantly.
mm-hmm. Yeah. The question is, how are we going to what impact are we going to have in our place and in our time and in our context? How are we going to progress or move the the faith, the tradition, the scriptures forward to the next generations?
Right.
What kind of impact are we going to have? And from my vantage point, I think our there's so much. Like I said, there's so much to be said the about the scriptures and our relationship with them today, and specifically in like American Western evangelical
Right.
Christianity. Because like um the one thing that I think that we've said this a ton, but I think whenever you mistake your interpretation of the scriptures for just what the Bible says, and then you expect if you couple that with this sort of view of the scriptures as if like there's no like it's just plainly this is what it says, and this is as if God himself was speaking to you. This is what, however I read it, this is what God says. Well, then if it has that kind of authority, if you couple that with this is not an interpretation, this is what it says, well then you're like think that that is dangerous territory, specifically for our preaching, because I think it takes the focus off of like I'm not sure how to say what I'm wanting to say, but I was thinking about this audiobook. I started listening to Joash Thomas's The Justice of Jesus, and in the section I was listening to today, he was talking about um, being recentered on Jesus and on the Eucharist table, and like if you, I think that having an encounter with Jesus, the only one thing that he said was like the only place we can guarantee an encounter with Jesus is at the table. We can't guarantee an encounter with Jesus in uh, our in the worship or even in the preaching. But I think that what we've done, especially in a lot of church contexts, especially if you don't take communion regularly, then you're not guaranteeing people an encounter with Jesus every week. What you're giving them is essentially your opinion about what the Bible says, and we're calling it church. And that's not like
Just giving them the word of God.
right. I mean, and I'm not saying that they're,
I mean that sarcastically.
yes, I know. And I'm not saying any of that to say that like there aren't some things that are clear. I think that there are some things that are clear in Scripture, but I also think that there's maybe more things that are not as clear, and we're trying to act as if that's not a thing. We're trying to act as if this thing is speaking with one voice, and that voice is the voice of God, and whatever I read, whatever I take from it, is what God is saying, and therefore you're wrong, and everyone needs to listen to me, and to hear me talk about what I have read in the scriptures is to hear the voice of God. It is to encounter Christ.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the case.
Right.
The only place we can guarantee an encounter with Jesus Christ is at the table, I think.
I think that it would be helpful to make a delineation in our mind between what it says and what does that mean. Because it can say something. I mean, it really goes along the
Right.
lines of what we were saying about, are these voices competing or are they complementary, even though they're
Right.
saying different things? Because it can say something, but what does that mean for you? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for us living in the United States of America in the year 2026? What does that
Yeah.
mean to me as the father of a 4-year-old that I'm trying to train up into the world? You know what I mean? What does that mean for me as a cisgendered white male, someone of privilege, middle class status in 2026 America? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, these are all contexts that you have to, like, what does it can say something. The words on the page may say this, but what does it mean today to me, to you, to us as a community? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, those are two different things. Those are two totally different things.
Yeah.
And I think that it's partially just because we want it to be that flat black and white rule book. We've really focused hard on what it says and not really focused on, okay, but what does that mean for us?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, luckily for us, I think the Holy Spirit is, is always there to help us out, whether it seems like it in the moment or not, you know. At least that's what I'm convinced of. I'm convinced that, like, we're not always just, sometimes we are. I think sometimes we are just making stuff up when we read the Bible. I think that is true. But I also think that, like, there's always going to be the Holy Spirit working through someone's reading of the scriptures to bring about whatever truth, whatever message is necessary for this time and for this place. I believe that. I believe that there's always going to be people, there's always going to be Holy Spirit led voices in any time, in any place, in any culture that are offering that voice that is a call to faithfulness. What depends on who you are. What I guess what
Let those with ears to hear, let them hear.
right. I mean, for our current time, of course, you can see it all kind of different ways.
Right.
As far as who those voices are, but
Well, all I mean when I say let those with ears to hear, let them hear, it's like this to to build off of that. The Spirit may be active, but we got to move out of our own way, or we're only hearing our own thoughts. You know what I mean? Like, you have to be receptive, I guess. But if you always know ahead of time what it means,
yeah,
then you're not open to the Holy Spirit instructing you on what it has to say, perhaps.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
That's
Jesus
that's
is,
all I mean. Is there's a at least in my opinion, if there's a Holy Spirit active in it, it's a participatory thing. It's not a I don't even the word lost my mind where like a spirit would possess. It's not like a possession thing, right?
right.
It's a
Yeah.
participatory thing. So
Yeah. That's not really how I meant it at
I
all.
know, but that's what I was trying to express is that there isn't like the spirit sure is always working, but it has to be a participatory thing. You have to move out of your own way.
Yeah. Yeah. It is like I said, I have so many thoughts on it. There's so many things. I mean, we've talked about the Bible a ton. We've talked about these things a ton on here, but there's always more to say, and it always evolves in your mind, and the questions that you have are always
Right.
evolving. And
Well, it's all just fresh to me because of the courses. I just
yeah,
finished that Old Testament course. I'm starting the New Testament course. I mean, that's one of the things that came fresh to my mind as I completed the Old Testament course was like, as far as church goes. And I don't mean this specifically towards our church. I mean, just at large. When I say at large, I'm only familiar with evangelical Christianity. So that's what I'm talking about here. But man, we don't even really know how to read the Bible.
yeah,
Like some of the stuff that others may find elementary, I had never encountered really before until I read them in some of these books and listened to them in the lectures. Like that's not the way I was trained to read the Bible. It's got to be flat and literal, and there can be no multiplicity of voices. And
hmm
you know what I mean? Like we don't. And from that perspective, like that's one of the takeaways that I took away from the course is we have a lot of people within evangelicalism that love the Bible. They study the Bible, they read the Bible, we talk about the Bible. We gather on Sunday mornings and talk about the Bible. We come back to church again on Sunday nights and talk about the Bible. We get together on Wednesday nights and have Bible. We do independent Bible studies, Bible, 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 Bible. But we don't even know what they are, how to read them. Then that's a problem. Like, not that reading the Bible is a problem, but like I think that we need to take seriously that we need to learn how to read them.
yeah. There's so many things like that. I think that are like there has been since the beginning, as far as I know. There's always been um, schools. There has been the need for catechesis. There has been the need for learning these things. And somewhere along the way, we lost that. And I think it's done a real disservice to, I mean, you could trace it back further than us, but like our generation in particular, with all of the deconstruction and everything you're seeing, I think we would have maybe seen a lot less deconstruction or deconversion
Yeah.
if there had been those structures in place instead of there being so many things that are just assumed and never actually expounded on or taught or explained.
Right.
And I think that how to read the Bible is one of them. How to pray is another one.
Yep.
What in worship and the core doctrines of the Trinity and incarnation and the humanity and divinity of Jesus. What do we mean and not mean by that? Like there's so many things like that that you
Right.
depending on your context or whatever your church upbringing is, you may have those are all things that are just kind of assumed and that you're just like given, but you're not told like why this is important and how to
Right.
hold all of it together. And,
I mean, I've said it a million times on here before, that my entire life, I've been a Trinitarian, believe the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I never knew what that actually meant, like doctrinally, until I started taking these courses at Global Grace, because
yeah,
like it's just one of those things that we always just said and assumed, but we've never, at least I've never participated in at any of the churches I've ever attended, a in-depth study on the implications of what it means to be a Trinitarian. Like what, because that's, I mean, I wrote about it as sort of the thesis statement of my essay for the foundations of the Christian faith course is the Trinity. Like it's, if you're a Trinitarian, like that is literally the foundation of what all the rest of your beliefs are built out of, you know?
Hmm.
It has implications that reverberate into everything else that you say, you know? Um, I mean, that's one of the things that I noticed right off the bat as I actually started learning what the doctrine of the Trinity meant, as far as like how this is written about in the creeds, the Nicene Creed, you know, like the Chalcedon, like what is meant by these actual doctrines is a lot of the things that we say about like atonement and how we conceptualize the cross are absolutely heretical if you
Yeah.
understand the Trinity. Like, it's you, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in with terrible atonement theories if we actually understood what we believed about the Trinity. You know,
Yeah.
that's what I mean about it being foundational. Like, it reverberates all the way out into to the atonement, you know? Like,
Hmm.
if you take seriously the pre-existence of the, you know, the Father and Son, that relational existence, if you take seriously that there can be no division between those things, there can be no separation, like that has to reverberate into everything else you believe. But
Yeah.
because we don't learn those things about it, we just say out of one side of our mouth, yeah, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But then out of the other side of our mouths, we will espouse an atonement theory that makes a mockery of the Trinity.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Like, those are very important things that we need to learn.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's something that there's so many projects. There's so many things that um I'm like, I want to do something about this.
Yeah.
And but I don't know where to even start, you know?
Well, and that's a bad, like, and this maybe is a little bit too vulnerable for the pod. I don't know, but that's a struggle that I have, is that I want to be involved like that, and I've got some good ideas, and I'm well read. Obviously, I was just complaining about not having enough time to read all the books I want to read because I read every single day, and I still don't have enough time to like I'm well read, and like I'm taking these courses, and I have a lot of ideas and suggestions, but I'm also so what's the opposite of self-confident? Like, as far as like, I know that people look at me within our context as like someone who thinks differently and don't always agree with the things I say, and so I'm hesitant to even suggest things. Like, I just not I'm hesitant in a way that's like what I'm, you know, opposite of self-confident, of like I don't even have confidence in my own ability to pick out something that's good. Like, I think we should learn about the Trinity, but like, and I've got some great ideas about books that I've read. You know, let's read The Great Dance by Baxter Kruger. That's a great one. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Let's
Right.
read Delighting in the Trinity by Michael Reeves. That's a great one. But like, I'm so self-conscious of myself now, post deconstruction, that like I'm afraid to suggest books, you know, for us to read, studies for us to do, because I'm just like, I mean, I think this is great theology and I think it's very good, but everybody else may think it's heretical because it's, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, well, the thing is, I think if anyone thinks that those particular things that those, well, I mean, I should say I've actually never read one of the names in there you said. I don't think I've ever even heard of them. But like Orthodox Trinitarian doctrine, I mean, that shouldn't be something that's like controversial to be like, hey, let's talk about this.
shouldn't be though. That's the key. Shouldn't.
But like, you know, and I mean, even if you wanted to suggest other people that are more, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think that that's something that would be great to do. I think actually we do our little Paul and Silas things at our church specifically. We have not only do we do the Bible studies, but we were doing like once a month. We're doing like we're gonna show up late at night. We're gonna stay all night and study and pray and do these things. And like we always have a topic. Maybe we should start doing those as topics, like those main things, and like actually, even if it was just that, even if it was just a conversation where we're at least talking about it,
Right.
then maybe that is better than doing nothing at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that that I had told you was like, I think a great place to start would be Jesus and the Undoing of Adam, followed by The Mediation of Jesus Christ, both by Baxter Kruger.
Yeah.
I mean, the Jesus and the Undoing of Adam is like 78 pages, I think. It's less than 80 pages. It's a short read, but like it rocked my world. Forever changed the way I see things. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and like I think that would be a great thing for us to study because it's not like heavy conceptually, but it is like that's the way Baxter writes, is that it's ground earth shaking, but he puts it in a way that even someone like me can understand it. You know what I mean? And it's a short read, and I think it paints, it's based rooted in Orthodox Trinitarian, doctrines.
Yeah.
Uh, I think it would be a great read, but I'm also hesitant to even suggest anything because I lack that self confidence anymore. Because and to be fair, it's not anybody else's fault. Like I understand that I see things differently. Like I know that about myself. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, I feel that too. I feel that hesitancy to like make suggestions like that because I for the same reasons, but it's it is unfortunate, I think, because really the only suggestions that I'm making are let's I think one thing that drives me bonkers is a lot of people, I've said this over and over again, but like I think a lot of people will hear that a lot of the things that I say and think that like I'm really progressive. But actually my I think I've used the term regressive before, but I think actually what I'm maybe trying to say when I say regressive is like I don't think you guys are conservative enough. Like let's go back. Like theologically conservative, I mean.
right.
Like
Well, it's sort of the old, the idea. Who's the one woman who talks about historical Christianity all the time?
Alyssa Childers.
Alyssa Childers. Historical Christianity. She was talking about like 200 years ago out of a 2,000-year-old religion.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like I think that a lot of people would accuse me of being more progressive, but really I think and I mean and I won't deny that maybe in some elements I am a little bit, but like also I think my biggest issue is like a lot of so much of what I believe now is really shaped by the early church. Like I'm actually saying you guys aren't conservative enough. Like there's traditions put in place here that we've abandoned. I'm trying to go back to like that is like the conservative leanings that I have inside of me that is coming showing through in my theology and it's getting viewed by other people as progressive somehow. You know what I'm saying? Like that is
I
the
do.
progressive ideal is like no, these things were put in place for a reason. We need to conserve these things.
But yeah, I mean, perhaps it's a way of conceptualizing it as any sort of move from if they consider their current position as like base, any sort of movement from that looks progressive
Yeah.
from their perspective, even if it's actually going back to what it was prior to.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
still a move from where they're at, so that seems progressive.
Hmm.
It's a movement of some sort.
Yeah. And I just say that to say that like I feel the same thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, yeah,
But I feel like what bothers me about even
yeah.
feeling that tension is because from my perspective I'm not really saying anything that's crazy. I feel like I'm actually saying pretty orthodox things. It's just it might sound crazy to some folks, but
I mean, I definitely say crazy things sometimes.
well, yeah,
That's
we all do, but
but I say a lot of crazy things, but I'm admitted that I'm working through stuff all the time. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna say crazy stuff. It's just part of the journey. It's part of who I am.
yeah.
You know,
Uh,
I'll say something one week and contradict myself the next, and that's sometimes intentional. Like because I am working through things. Like
yeah. Well, you sent me something on Baxter a while back. Well, you sent me that Chat
oh yeah,
GPT
yeah, yeah.
little convo you had where you were kind of using Baxter's theology to as a sort of base for this conversation. And reading that, I kind of realized that like I don't really listen to Baxter a lot, and I've never read any of his stuff. I have in the past listened to him a decent amount, but he's not someone that I would have said has been a huge influence on me. But what I found reading that was that my theology is actually very close.
Yeah.
I just got there a different way.
That's what I was thinking as you said that he was someone that you've listened to a ton or read any of his stuff. Was like, I feel like he's somebody you would absolutely love. Like he's
I
right up your
probably would.
right up your alley. He speaks your language. He's got
Yeah.
a very similar theology. It really fits in with the line with what you're saying, where everything he says is orthodox based. Like he's not he knows the creeds, he knows orthodox beliefs, and everything he says is rooted in those orthodox beliefs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can seem progressive to others because they're not familiar with the orthodox belief and it's a move from where they're at, but it's actually closer to the way things were in the past than,
Mm-hmm.
it's exactly what you were just talking about. He
Yeah.
also speak, like I mean, you mentioned it the other day that he's from, the South. He's got that Southern twang. He's grew up in the same sort of area of the world that we did. So he speaks the language that we speak. Everything for him is rooted in the love of the Trinity. I mean, his ministry is called perichoresis,
Right.
right? Which
Yeah.
is that indwelling circle dance of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, which ultimately is love. Like that's the root of all of his teachings. And so, I think what he does is he takes language that everyone that we go to church would be familiar with, but roots it in a place of love instead of maybe what some people in conservative evangelicalism would be more familiar with, which is a wrathful, bloodthirsty, violent, retributive God.
Yeah. I thought that you were gonna. I thought that what you were gonna say was gonna be much softer than that, but you went the complete opposite
Yeah,
direction.
I went all in.
I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, that is what I feel. That's why, to me, I resonate with Baxter so much, is because he does speak that language to where it's not heretical. There's nothing that he would say that is actually heretical, but some people may take it that way because they are. I mean, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody else because this is the religion I grew up with. Was there has to be a blood sacrifice. God demands a blood sacrifice, and like that's why Jesus came, because there has to be a blood sacrifice to appease the angry God, or to satisfy these rules that He put in place. Like that again creates that division between the Father and the Son. Like, see, those are the things He's trying to avoid. He understands the doctrine of the Trinity. There cannot be that separation. There has to be another way, and like
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a more loving. What you end up with in following his theology is a more loving God.
Yeah.
And if God can be more loving, then he is, because he's more loving than we can ever conceptualize.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I guess I do need to read Baxter. I just thought it was interesting that whenever I was reading all the stuff that was saying, like, I pretty well got to this very similar place, but I got there via folks like Chris Green and Brian Zond and Jordan Daniel Wood and Maximus via Jordan
Right.
and
And
Gregory and Nissa and different folks.
you'll get some of those, some of like those other voices, like you were saying, through through him. You'll get that with Baxter too, because he studied under Torrance in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
So you get the Torrance brothers, and both of them were highly influenced by Athanasius. So you get a lot of Athanasius, like he follows that sort of lineage.
Yeah.
So
Right.
but all of that is rooted, again, like you said, going back to Gregory or Athanasius. Like those are early church fathers. It's all, you can follow the lineage of the teachings that these guys are purporting all the way back to the early church.
Right.
And that's what we don't know about.
Yeah.
And at least in my experience.
Yeah. I never even. I guess it. I mean, of course, if you had asked me, like, were there people before you that knew about Christianity? Of course, I would have been like, oh, yeah, of course. But like, it was almost like my mind that I never even thought about or even considered the fact that there were people from the very beginning that had written things about the scriptures and written things
Right.
about the faith that I needed to probably listen to and
Well,
read.
I thought, and this is going to show my ignorance, but I think if people are being honest, they would agree that they had similar thoughts. I just sort of thought that the things that we believed and talked about in church were the same things that everybody had just agreed on all
Yeah,
the way back to
right.
to Jesus. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like hell. What do you mean? There's other ways to conceptualize it. I just thought that there was
Yeah.
hell, and that's what everybody has always believed since the beginning of time. I didn't know that there was multiplicity of voices and schools of thought regarding this topic. What do you like? What
Yeah.
atonement? Like, of course, it's penal substitutionary. What do you mean? What do you mean? There's other atonement theories? I just assumed that these were all of these core beliefs that we held were never disputed, never like it was just a continuous stream of thought. That's how ignorant I was, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I was the same way. I think that most people, I think, not maybe, that's maybe saying too much is to
Yeah.
say most, but I think a lot of people have that same experience, though.
I mean, I was blown away when I looked into the rapture
Yeah.
because I always just assumed it was like, oh yeah, of course it's Paul wrote about it. Obviously, it's always been there. Everybody's always just taught the rapture. Everybody believes that. When you just find out, like, well, actually, nobody taught that until a couple hundred years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is crazy. That is a very modern doctrine, really.
Yeah.
I mean, even some folks that you could read that from the early church that would have read Revelation in a sort of premillennial type way, it still wasn't rapture.
No.
It
No.
was premillennial, but it wasn't rapture. So yeah, that was a big one because rapture was like a big, like we talked about the rapture so much. Like I remember hearing about the rapture and thinking about the rapture maybe more than any other teaching period growing up.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
that was a big one for
I
sure.
didn't grow up in the Christ Gospel Church, but I started attending there when I was 21. Well, actually, let me back up. I started the first time I ever attended there was I was like 16, but I didn't full time start going there until me and Kelly got married, so I was 21. Um, I mean, it's hard to say, but I would almost be willing to say you would be hard pressed to go to a single service and not hear the word rapture at least one time.
Yeah, or at least the concept
Yeah.
talked about. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that that's too much of an exaggeration, really.
Yeah, I wasn't. That was one example of me trying not to exaggerate. Like, I really do think that.
Yeah.
But I mean, all of this is I don't know if this is where you wanted to go with it, but it's all sort of related to something that I had been wrestling with myself,
Right.
which is um, a constant battle, sort of between. Uh, I'm trying to word this in a way to where I don't because I don't have too high of a view of myself, but I am someone that has formal education and I can provide a diverse perspective, which is needed to avoid echo chamber. Um, and I'm someone who's very passionate about this stuff. And so like I want to engage in the community and have a voice in the community and help people see a different way of viewing, like I said, suggesting some of these books and let's learn about the Trinity, let's learn about the hypostatic union, the incarnation. Like man, there's so much that that's related into the incarnation, especially if you're going in that Athanasian Torrance lineage that you can dive into there and learn. Like, I want to be a part of that. And at the same time, because it does feel like a lot of times those views are not always accepted or wanted, there's also that wrestling of like wanting to withdraw and not participate. And that's something that I've wrestled with really since the beginning of my deconstruction. I'll go through, waves of like, I want to participate and be involved, and then I'll get frustrated. And then I don't want to, I'm just like, forget about it, And then
Yeah.
I'll get like, no, I want to be involved. And that's just a constant battle. But I think that is a breeding ground for some of this bad theology that we've been talking about and some of the, because And this was something that I had said last week, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I actually said it not on the recording. It was after we got done recording, and we were talking about, you know, people with authority in communities who aren't educated or don't know, necessarily have a background in theology, but they have that voice and authority. And on one hand, that's frustrating because I see a sort of ignorance, what I would perceive to be an ignorance in what the stuff we've been talking about. The whole, we don't know this stuff. So I feel a frustration with that. But on the other hand, I recognize that part of the reason, not the only reason, but part of the reason that these people have voices and the authority that they do is because other people are withdrawing and not participating. That creates a vacuum to where these others are willing to step in and fill, you know what I mean? And so like if I'm frustrated with things like that, I can't I have to look at the plank in my own eye. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why should I be frustrated at this person because they're the ones willing to step up and do it when nobody else wants to do it? You know what I mean?
Right.
And so that's been sort of what's been on my mind lately is sort of this like I want to engage because I do want to have a positive impact on my community, you know?
Right.
Um so yeah, but I see it as a problem just kind of holistically because we see the numbers, and we mentioned it a few episodes back about the declining numbers within the church, and I think part of that is part of this deconstruction community. People are deconstructing and leaving the church, and that's creating a sort of vacuum at the top where it can be filled with people who don't know what they're talking about, but they're willing to talk about it. They're willing to talk about the stuff they don't know about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
especially like I think about my own deconstruction journey, which I've talked about at length on here, but it was really focused on the Bible and like the stuff that we've talked about in this episode that's kind of obvious, like that is not even disputed by anybody, scholarly, about the multiplicity of voices and it not lining up scientifically and historically and blah, 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 blah. And like once you learn that, you've learned something, but it causes you to withdraw. But then that only creates space at the top for the people that hold those views that don't that don't hold water,
Right. Yeah.
But I don't know how you navigate that those waves of like I understand that and recognize that, but for my own mental health, sometimes I gotta withdraw at the same time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. Yeah. It's something that I've been feeling for a long time. Like, I haven't really went through those waves. I mean, to some extent, I guess I have at times, but like more often than not, I'm on the side of like, I think that there's something, I don't think that the Christian, the American, even the American evangelical Christianity, I don't think that I think maybe in a previous episode recently actually said it was doomed. And maybe it is, but maybe not. Like, I do think that there is a need for, I said it, I think there's a need for catechesis. I think that the future of the church is going to require people that have done the work that you're talking about and are willing to be bold about it and like actually say the things and actually take those positions of teaching and stuff like that.
you mean follow the Jesus way?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he did, right? He was a Jew, participated in temple
Yeah. As was his custom.
as was his custom, right?
Yeah.
Like, traveled to Jerusalem for the Passover feast.
Right.
Like, he was a practicing Jew. He didn't withdraw from his religion.
Yeah.
But he wasn't accepted
Right.
always. I mean, ultimately, it was his own religion and other factors, but they factored into
Yeah.
his murder. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I wanted to make sure to be clear about the other factors because I'm not being anti-Semitic in that, but it is like it was a collaboration between religious authority and political authority.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's something that I've been feeling for a long time, and but also not being sure that I wanted to take on that responsibility of saying, all right, I'll what's the phrase? Here am I, send me.
Here am I, send me. Henanai. I don't know what it's something like that in Hebrew.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, because there is a lot of. Here's another thing I think people maybe don't understand. For some reason, I'm on this. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I keep thinking about things that grind my gears about how people perceive me, and I don't know why I'm thinking about that today, but I just am. But like I mentioned earlier about being perceived as progressive when I think I'm actually being maybe more conservative.
Right.
Like I also think that um some folks may perceive me as um you know what? I lost what I was going to say because I was thinking about the
Something about how you're perceived.
Yeah, because I was talking about how I feel that desire, but I also know that there's a great responsibility that comes with teaching and preaching and all those things. And I think that's something that another one of those things that I think people maybe don't understand. I think that a lot of people could hear the things that I've said and or maybe have interpreted in the past, at least things that I've said and took it to be. And maybe I know that whenever I came back from my deconstruction, I came in like a wrecking ball,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
And so I know that there's probably some folks that maybe would could see some of the things that we've said and think that or think that I specifically, I'll just talk about myself, don't take seriously the responsibility that comes with teaching and preaching. But I'll say that is the only thing actually that has prevented me to this point from actually talking to Brother Steve and being like, hey, I would like to preach more, or I would like to teach an adult class. I would like to teach someone who's going to actually understand what I'm saying
Right.
and remember it next week, because right now we teach the little kids. But that's the only thing, actually, if I'm being real honest, is that fear of having that responsibility, because I take it very seriously, and it is a great responsibility to know that I'm supposed to be leading these people to be more faithful to Christ. That means I have to know who Christ is. That means there is a great responsibility on my part to not only know Christ, but to portray Christ accurately and and let that be seen in me and in my life. And that is a great responsibility that I do not take lightly. But that is probably the primary reason that I haven't done exactly what we're talking about, which is try to um I mean, I keep thinking of an example from this book the audiobook I mentioned earlier that I was listening to today, and it was a completely different context, but I'm going to use it as an example anyway. But he was talking about Mark Driscoll and some phrase that he had used about get on the bus or get ran over, and he was using it in a completely different way, a very Mark Driscoll-y way. But what I mean by it is this is something we've been talking about for a while now when it comes to Christianity, and specifically the American Christianity that we've grown up with, and we've talked about what's worth saving and all of that. We've talked about all of that.
Yep.
And for a while now, I've been not sure that I wanted to take on the responsibility of fixing the bus rather than, because you can stay on the bus. To use the analogy, what I'm using it for is staying on the bus and not changing anything, just accepting the ride.
Don't rock the boat.
Exactly. And I'm also, or you can get off of the bus and just get ran over by it and let the bus take you out,
Yeah.
And that's an option too.
Right.
That would be the sort of I'm just going to completely disengage, and whatever happens, this train is a runaway train, and I'm not going to try to stop it.
Right.
I'm just going to
I've
get.
washed my hands of this.
But there's another option, and the other option is to try to fix the bus. And like, I'm not saying that like. Do not get me wrong in any sense. I do not think I'm some sort of like savior that's going to come in and fix things.
You're the Christian mechanic.
Right. But something has to be done. I don't know in what way I can actually help, and I don't know if my attempts to help maybe that would be a hindrance more than a help. I don't know, but I do feel a almost an obligation to try to do something.
Yeah.
But like I said, there's that internal tension of like all the stuff that we've been talking about as far as like not thinking that really anyone even cares what I have to say, or like thinking that like, well, I think a lot of people may think that like, oh, I like hearing what Sean has to say because it's a little crazy and out there, but then they don't actually think about it and like actually like,
Yeah.
it's just, they think that it's just nice to have someone that disagrees. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not that like,
It gives us a sense of diversity.
right. They like the sense that there's diversity. They don't actually like what I'm saying, and actually, it doesn't cause them to actually think or study these things in a different way or see them in a different light. It's more about like, oh, I like that there's some diversity here, that there's people that disagree. It's not an actual like, this might actually change my mind. It's more like, no, my mind's not gonna. My mind's made up. I just like that you have something different to say.
Right.
You know what I mean? I wrestle with a lot of that stuff.
Which even that, as I think about it, is, I think, valuable. And I think that perhaps that's a role that I can have, because I know I see things differently. I've admitted it here. And that doesn't mean that I think everybody should agree with me, but it is nice to, I think every community needs a multiplicity of voices, even if you're the only one in that voice. You know what I mean? Like, we've sort of, I say we, I mean, again, the broader. This is not our church. This is evangelical Christianity. But I think that we've sort of tended to want to bring everybody into agreement about everything. We all have to see things exactly the same way. And I kind of see it's like, I think a healthy community has a diversity of voices and opinions and thoughts. And that can help us grow. And that doesn't mean that that means you have to agree with me, but you can hear my thoughts and think through the things I'm saying, and allow that to resonate with you however it does. You know, I mean, the easy example for me is like, I just straight up, my thoughts align more with Paul Tillich style thinking. It just does. Like, it was, even they already did before I had ever even heard of Paul Tillich. I didn't know it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, most of the people that I know don't. That's fine. Like,
Right.
I don't need that. Nobody needs to agree with me on that. But I think that there are some healthy things that a more Tillichian view can help others see. And that doesn't mean that you have to move into becoming a Tillichian,
Right. Yeah.
but you can allow his perspectives, his understanding of symbol and uh, uh, inner work. You know, you can allow that to inform your own theology. So I think it's valuable to have those different voices within the community. You know, as long as they, and this is what it kind of goes along with what you were saying about perception, right? Because and it's nobody's fault but my own too, because I have come in like a wrecking ball too at times.
Yeah.
You know, we live and learn. That's part of our growth as
Right.
humans. But also, like, I also have a deep respect for the community that I'm a part of. You know what I mean? So like, I have never, and I would never go into the walls of the church that I attend and willingly and on purposely teach something that is against the core doctrines and teachings of the church. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Like, I may not even agree with all of the things, but I'm not going to go in there and like disrupt the community.
Yeah.
Because I have too much respect, because that's my community. Even though I may disagree on certain doctrinal points, to me, that community is not about, you have to agree on all these points. Like, you are my community, like a family. Families don't always agree on things, but they're always there for each other. Or so that's what a family is supposed to be. That's what a community should be. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't do that. I never have, but, or to my knowledge, never intentionally at least.
Right.
But with that being said, like I do think that a multiplicity of voices and diverse opinions is healthy for the community.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just hard being that outsider, though.
Yeah. It's hard whenever you're the one providing the diversity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I do think that all that is a good thing. But like what I was trying to name earlier was that I think that there's a difference between like just liking that there's diversity versus like actually like
yeah.
that diversity affecting
Right.
the church in a positive way.
Right.
And that's what I would like to see is some positive.
And that's really kind of what I had hinted at previously about. I don't remember if I said it on the podcast or if it was just private conversations with you, but about wanting to engage with my community in a positive way. I don't want to be destructive, but
Right.
constructive, and that's what I mean by that. Is because part of that is part of it is on the receiving end too, but also part of our responsibility is understanding how we can engage in a constructive way to where our diverse voices aren't just written off and ignored, but actually cause people to think. You know what I mean? Like part of it is learning how our perspectives and diverse thoughts fit into the larger framework to where it does resonate with people.
Yeah. Yeah, there's for sure work to be done on that front. And that's actually maybe it that's actually, well, not maybe, this is definitely another factor into why I haven't pushed more to teach or preach more than I have. In addition to just that responsibility, there's also, which I mean, it's part of the responsibility is what you're talking about, but like the knowing how to, I don't want to say this, knowing how to be honest and knowing how to say the things that I feel like have been revealed to me, but in a way that isn't jarring in a negative sense to folks. That takes a lot of wisdom, and that takes a lot of wisdom that I don't know if I have yet, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, me either.
So, but it is frustrating whenever, like, it almost makes me think maybe I'm being too cautious. Whenever you see there's some like from other churches or other contexts, you'll see someone, maybe you like listen to a preacher online or something, and you're like, this guy seems like he doesn't have any of the concerns that I'm you know what I mean? Like it makes you think like, I don't know, maybe I'm being too cautious. Maybe if everyone's just going out there willy-nilly saying whatever they want, maybe I should just do it too. you know?
Well, I do think that part of it for me is not. I didn't mean for it to like. I'm not trying to point fingers at my own community, especially or
Yeah.
anybody else's community, as far as my own reservations, as far as like suggesting topics or books that we can do a study on and stuff. That to me is not reflective necessarily of, not an accurate reflection of feedback that I've received. And in fact, it's to the contrary of that. Like when I engage in our Sunday school classes and Wednesday night studies, I always get good feedback and people really enjoy the things that I have to say, but I'm so self-conscious of myself
Mm-hmm.
that that's what I was trying to get at, that like I'm hesitant to suggest things not because people have pushed back against me, but because it's something about me. It's something internal with me that I'm self-conscious about myself because I know I am a little bit different. And some of the things that I have said in the past have ruffled a little bit of feather, like
Right.
that's true, but not intentionally, of course.
Yeah. I have gotten some negative feedback in the past, but like I the same as you. I mean, usually I get positive feedback from folks as well, but it doesn't. I don't believe it. I guess maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at though, is it is a self-conscious thing, like I don't have any reason to feel like that, but I do.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in that same boat. Yeah.
that was probably important to say, actually, because now in hindsight, I probably did come across as like, well, pointing fingers at the community when that's not what I meant. But
Yeah. Well, you know what? I didn't know we were going to say any of the things that we said today.
I didn't either. I sent you like 9 million topics.
No.
So I didn't know. I mean, I could
don't
have
know
went
if
any
we-
direction.
I don't know if we talked about any of them. We maybe touched on a couple of them,
Yeah.
but
I was throwing out all kinds of stuff to you.
true.
Tithing,
Baptism.
baptism. Well, that one was just fresh on my mind because we just had a baptism at church Sunday, and
Yeah.
Steve did his sermon on it. So
Right.
I just find it to be an interesting. Well, it's just along with any of the sacraments, right? Baptism, Eucharist, uh, communion. Those are kind of goes along with the theme that we've been talking about. Just knowing your doctrines. It's not really. I mean, that's why I was hesitating to use the word doctrines, because the Eucharist and baptism is more than a doctrine; it's a sacrament. But it
Yeah.
still fits in that vein of knowing your tradition and what does it mean and taking it seriously. You know what I mean? So that's why that topic came up. But
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think that those are all things that, like, I didn't know either. Like, I, I've actually thought about getting baptized again now that I have learned more about it. Because, like, you don't, I mean, I think whenever I was baptized as a kid, I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't even understand really, I didn't even really understand the symbolism behind it.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I kind of had a sort of vague idea. I still didn't actually even realize the symbolism behind it. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, I just knew that was a thing you're supposed to do.
I didn't. Yeah, I didn't either.
So, like, now as an adult having all of this, it kind of does make me think maybe I should get baptized again now that I actually have a better understanding of what it is I'm doing now.
Yeah, I can see that argument. I am kind of in a weird place about that too, because I would agree with you that like the first time I got baptized when I was a little kid, I had no idea what was going on. But the more recent times that I had, because I've been baptized multiple times, the more recent few times I'd been baptized, I knew like what I was doing. But should you get baptized every time that you, I don't want to say walk away from the faith, because I never really walked away from the faith, but there's been those waves again. You know what I mean? So like, as a sort of a re-entry back in, should you get baptized again, or does the last time count?
I mean, it doesn't count.
I said it that way intentionally.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it counts. Yeah. But I don't know. On another level, maybe it doesn't count because, like, if you don't understand what you're doing, um, maybe on one level it really doesn't count
Well, I
in that
guess.
sense. You know what I mean?
Well, let me explain my thinking behind why I say that. Is because if the symbolism of baptism is I am buried with Christ and resurrected as Christ,
Right.
if I have strayed from the path or walked away from the faith, or not me, just anyone, let's just use an example of anyone that has, let's say someone deconstructed and left the faith and now they're coming back into it. They meant it when they got baptized the first time, but could it be seen as allowing that fleshly man, is I guess the right word, uh, to come back into power, I guess, let's say, within your life, and it needs to be killed all over again? Do you now need to die to yourself again and be resurrected anew as a new creature again? And that's sort of the way I'm thinking about it. Like that makes sense. That's the way baptism makes sense to me, is like,
Yeah.
I don't know that you, well, like, yeah, I was buried and resurrected as a new creation, but now this new creation has went astray again, so I got to start all over again.
Mm.
To put it in simple terms.
Yeah. You put back on the old man.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So now you got to kill him all over again.
Yeah.
Non-lifestyle.
Yeah.
Just dunk me 9 times.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I don't know that, like, yeah, I do think that, like, there is something to that for sure. And I also think that there is, but I mean, on the other hand, it's like, I mean, if you're putting back on your old man once a week, do you get baptized once a week? You know, like,
But yeah, I guess you can.
like what counts as putting on your old man?
Right. But I think that that's something that you'd have to answer for yourself.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just meaning like if you like whatever you slipped up and you know you weren't living your most Christ-like this week.
Right.
Do you need to get baptized again? You know, or you know, this I don't
Right. I understand what you're saying. Yeah. I don't know. I've been baptized no less than 5 times for sure.
yeah. I've been baptized a lot. I haven't as an adult. I've gotten baptized, but it was more like an immersion thing for something specific rather than like a general baptism.
No, I think I've been baptized at least 3 times as an adult. Like intention, like for real baptism.
Yeah. At some point, I would like to talk about sacraments.
The problem I would like to, if we're going to talk about the sacraments, I think that that would be a really good one to have someone who actually knows what they're talking about,
Yeah.
because I don't know anything about them, and that's actually, but I'm interested to learn. Like
Mhm.
that's something I know that you seem really interested in, and it sort of resonates with you. You talk a lot about the Eucharist, but I don't really understand the Eucharist. It doesn't really have that. It doesn't hold the power for me that it does for you. And I'm not saying that as any sort of judgmental way, just a matter of fact. What, like, I don't understand. It's
Right.
not something that was ever taught to me. So
Yeah. I mean, I think given our theologies, that makes sense to me.
yeah,
That it wouldn't resonate with you in the same way it does with me.
right,
Because to me, it's more than symbolism. It's there is something real at work in it that I that is mystical.
yeah.
It's not it's not pure symbol. And I don't know, you may not disagree with that, but that's where my mind went with, especially with your Mortalikian
Yeah,
symbols very important in your theology.
right.
So like,
And that would be how I view it. It's just symbol. Like, yeah, to
yeah.
me.
Whereas I think sacrament is something entirely different. It's it's beyond symbol.
Which I say that, and this is why I'm sort of tiptoeing. I seem to be tiptoeing around it, is because I'm acknowledge my ignorance on the subject. Like to me, it's a symbol, but I don't know. I've never been formally educated on it. I'm not.
Right.
I don't come from a background that taught me about the sacraments. Like it's weird to even say Eucharist because I've never in my life called it. None of the
Right.
churches that I have ever attended have ever called it a Eucharist. I have taken communion,
Yeah.
the Lord's Supper,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
so I don't know. I just don't know, and I acknowledge my own ignorance. I just don't know. Like the way that I view it now is symbol, but I also acknowledge that I don't know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
But I would like to learn. I would be interested to have someone on who does know.
Yeah. The first person that comes to mind, I mean, there's so many people we could have on that do know what they're talking about. The first person that comes to mind is Chris Green. I would love to have Chris Green on.
I'll reach out to him.
But there's so many things I would love to talk to him about that I don't know what to even talk to him about first. I don't know if sacraments is the first thing.
We'll talk to him.
Um,
Send him an email.
yeah. One thing I think I've decided to do is as I read books now, I'm going to, if it's someone I think it's plausible for us to maybe get on the show, I'm going to start intentionally trying to like think of like questions to draw from, to ask for interviews potentially,
Right.
just in case, we happen to get someone on. Like I thought about that today when I was listening to that Joe Ash Thomas
Yeah.
uh,
I
book.
was thinking about that sort of when I was reading through, or not reading through, listening to the Caleb Campbell
Yeah.
book, because there was a lot of things that I was like, oh, this would be interesting to engage him, his thoughts on.
Yeah.
So not really questions so much as like themes that stand out or something, that he wrote that's like, oh, it would be cool to kind of prod him on this to like, what did you mean by this? Explain it, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I was thinking it was really a thought that came out of, if I'm being honest, kind of just pure laziness. so, so that like if or when we got these people on, I wouldn't have to like try to go back and be like, oh man, I don't remember there being this thing that I was like thinking at the time. And like, but if I just make those notes here and now, the first read through, then I'll have access to them and I won't have to like go back
right,
and try to find,
I got you.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Maybe
I
that's
don't think you would
laziness.
have. I
Maybe
don't think you
that's
would have that
just
problem
smart.
with Chris Green. I feel like you would have plenty to say.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You would probably have to lead that conversation, though. I have read one of his books.
Yeah. I've read 3 of his books so far, I think. 4? 3. I think I've read 3. I've got All Things Beautiful, but I've not started it yet. I thought that I would read Death of Emily Hart's The Light of Tabor because it's pretty short. I thought I could breeze through that, and then I would start on either The Whole Mystery of Christ by Jordan Daniel Wood or All Things Beautiful.
No. Jesus and the Undoing of Adam, and then the Mediation of Jesus Christ. Those like 70 pages apiece. You'll get through it in no time. It took me like 3 days to read.
Perhaps.
Just nose to the grindstone to read them suckers.
I need to get through this DBH book first, though.
Do it.
I know. I need to. Maybe that's what I should do when I go home. Just read. The wife's at bingo trying to make us rich, so
That's what I've been. I mean, really, I try to read. Like yesterday, I was off for Martin Luther Day, and I was able to read a ton. Actually, it was Martin Luther King Day, not Martin Luther of the Wesleyan tradition.
I had the same thought. Martin Luther, the reformer.
Yeah, but so I had the day off of work, and I didn't actually, for once in my life, I didn't have a ton of stuff on the docket to do. So I actually was able to read. I read probably a couple hours worth, so I got quite a bit read. But most days, 15 minutes before bed. That's what I'm getting in.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it makes sense to read those first because, and it may even make sense to read Jordan's book first because once I read All Things Beautiful, I'm going to want to read Fire in the Cloud.
Yeah.
And then I still don't think he's released the third one yet in the series, but in the Christology. But yeah.
One of the hard things for me with reading these books is I think I've talked about this before, but you kind of have to be in the mindset. That's one of the hard things about reading for like assigned readings versus just reading what you want to read. Because and the bad thing about even saying that is all the things I've been assigned to read were things I do want to read, but maybe not necessarily at the time I was reading them. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
and so then I want to go back and reread them. Like there's parts of Incarnation and Atonement, the 2 parts by T.F. Torrance that
Yeah.
like I would like to go back and read both of those all over again because I mean they're thick. You need to read them multiple times anyway because they're thick theologically, not just
Right.
page wise. But part of the time I was wrestling with stuff, I wasn't really. I was trying to just reading it to get through it. Like I would really like to read it from a place of like not that I just need to get through this so I can progress in my course, but like I want to retain everything I'm reading.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like that was some of the Fire in the Cloud too by Chris Green. Because I read it after Incarnation and Inspiration, or I always get those mixed up. I don't remember which way it goes, but I think it's Inspiration and Incarnation.
I think
actually.
so, yeah.
But I read it first and then Fire in the Cloud. And by the time I was like halfway through Fire in the Cloud, I was like ready to move on to something else. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I was reading it to get through it rather than
Right.
like trying to retain it all.
Yeah. I've read Surprised by God, Sanctifying Interpretation, and I read his um Lenten homilies, being transfigured. Man, that was so good. That one is one that I may have almost the entire thing highlighted, which defeats the whole purpose of the highlights. But it was just so good. There's one of the sermons. It's a collection of Lenten sermons, is what it is, homilies. And there was one in particular. I can't remember the name of it, or he talks about um, Nicodemus,
Oh, Nico.
and that one has really stuck with me. That was like maybe the best one in there, and I think I almost really did highlight that entire homily.
Yeah.
He's been a ginormous influence on me, really.
I really do think that I want to suggest for our Wednesday night study the Kruger books.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm so self-conscious of myself that I would really want to suggest to Steve to read them himself before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to just be like, hey, I think that we should do these, but before you just agree to it, I would like for you to read these yourself and be,
Right.
well, actually just read the one. Because if you're okay with Jesus and the undoing of Adam, you're going to have absolutely no problem with mediation, Jesus Christ. Like,
Right.
that one's easy. But I think I would rather just have him read it first.
Yeah, I think I mean, from what I do know about Jesus and the undoing of Adam and Baxter's theology in general, I would say if there was a hiccup, it may be in the idea of separation.
Yeah, that's what I would be afraid of, but also that's kind of the point.
Yeah. Right.
That's the one thing. That's why I'm suggesting the book in the first place.
Yeah.
That's the part I think we need to address.
Yeah. So yeah, do you own physical copies of them?
No, that's the problem. Both of them I have on the Kindle. So I thought about buying physical copies just for that reason.
How much is it?
It's like $10, I think, 15.
Yeah. I maybe won't read them just yet,
Fine.
just because I
You have already a ton of books. Yes.
have some I've already purchased already, or actually, most of those were Christmas gifts. But
Yeah.
anyway, I have several that I already have right there.
I don't know if I'll suggest. I don't know. I just think it's a good place for us to like. That's the kind of stuff I think we need to be studying and thinking through. And I think that those are, like I said, they're short, they're easy conceptually. I don't think it's too far outside the lines. I think it's a good
Hmm.
place to start.
He has physical copies of them, right, on Amazon,
Yeah,
I'm
on
assuming.
Amazon. On Amazon, yeah.
I wonder how much they are. I was going to say, if you were going to suggest someone read it, it may not be a bad idea to just buy it,
Well, that's what I was gonna do.
like a physical copy of it.
Then again, we could just look at the Trinity. There's a million books by that we could look at.
Yeah.
I think "Delighting in the Trinity" by Michael Reeves was one that I had to read for one of my courses at Global Grace. It's a short, easy read. It's there's nothing in there that's I actually would be comfortable suggesting that one, to be honest with you. Like, I don't think anybody would have a problem with that, and I don't think it's very expensive. And I do have a physical copy of it that someone could borrow.
The paperback of Jesus and the Undoing of Adam is 14.95
Yeah,
on Amazon. So
it's not bad.
it's not bad. No. Yeah.
I know.
Didn't you read a book by Callistus Ware? Was that for your Trinitarian class too?
Yeah. Yep.
Orthodox Way?
The Orthodox Way. Yep. That was a good one too.
I think I would like that one.
I have a physical copy of it, so if you want to read it, you can.
I may. It was kind of a short one too, right?
It was a kind of an it's an easy read, like a good one. I mean, there's a lot of he gets into a lot of like topics, but it's sort of like a high level overview. It's nothing that's hard conceptually to understand. It's pretty easy to read. That's good.
Yeah.
So many books, so many. I just went to Second Charles yesterday and bought 3 more.
Really? What'd you get?
So I bought I don't even remember. One of them was Marcus Borg, and it has to do with reading the New Testament. That's why I bought it, because I'm in the New Testament course.
Yeah.
One of them I'd never heard of, but it was called Between Christ and Caesar.
Hmm.
And so I bought it just because it seemed applicable with the whole Christian nationalism theme that we've been
Yeah.
going on. So I bought it. And I think I remember looking in the the reviews on it, and one of the people that had written a review that was included on it was maybe Marcus Ford or John Crossan or somebody that like I respect, and was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, if they're endorsing this, then I'm comfortable with it. So
Right.
um, And then the third one, I don't even remember what it was, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
That's how I do. I just go on Second Charles and just buy books.
Yeah. I don't remember all the ones I got there last time. I bought 2 or 3 last time I was in there.
I know it was something to do with reading scriptures, because that was specifically what I went in there to look for. Was like, I'm in this New Testament course. Let's look for something I can use.
Yeah. I've got that More Christ-Like Word by Brad Jerzik, if you wanted to read that.
That'll be a good one.
Which he does get into the New Testament some. I mean, he covers both Testaments.
Yeah.
But
so much to read, man. So
Yeah.
little time.
Indeed. Well, are we ready to wrap it up?
I'm ready.
All right.
I'm good. My heart is clear.
Okay. All right, then. We're going to wrap her up. Bye, everybody.